We're going to look at a parallel program that makes some of the functions when looking at Premiere Pro easier. We'll be taking an overview of Adobe Prelude. Prelude is a standalone program and is an ingest and logging application designed to accelerate the process of ingesting and tagging large quantities of file-based video footage. That's not to say it can't be used for small projects, it can. It comes into its own when you have a number of video files you want to initially ingest, tag, log, and transcode. Prelude helps you efficiently tag and transcode raw footage. Its interface allows you to place comments and make subclips out of the media you bring into it prior to sending over to a program such as Premiere Pro. Using Prelude prior to opening Premiere Pro means you can add comments and apply metadata changes to multiple clips in an efficient single step. Prelude doesn't replace the similar process that can be executed in a nonlinear editor such as Premiere Pro to do this, but running Prelude as a standalone application for this sort of work is much more efficient. This efficiency comes into its own when working as part of a team, where one person can be ingesting and adding comments and creating rough cuts of a movie prior to sending to another team member who will make the rough cut more permanent in Premiere Pro. Prelude works extremely well with other programs such as Final Cut. However, I'm going to focus on Prelude's inherent link to Premiere Pro. I'll briefly explain Prelude's workflow. Prelude creates a project file for every project that you create, and this project file contains references to the video media that you add to your project. However, the project file simply stores references to your ingested video source. Project files, therefore, conveniently remain relatively small. When I said the project file simply stores references, it must be remembered that owing to Prelude only referencing where the raw source files are stored, you'll need to ensure you avoid moving, renaming, or deleting these source files, because Prelude cannot subsequently locate any moved or renamed files automatically. One of the brilliant things about Prelude is you can either ingest entire movie clips or you can partially ingest sections of a clip in much the same way as we've seen when we've used in-points and out-point markers in Premiere Pro to only use a smaller section of a larger clip. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Prelude's user interface. Like all the other Adobe programs, it's set out in panel view, and of course my menu bar is across the top. We've got File, Edit, Marker, Rough Cut, Window and Help. In the top left we have a Project panel. For the moment, just note that the Project panel acts like the Project panel within Premiere Pro. Any assets that it has looked for will show under the Name column. Just above the list of assets you'll notice this search field. And very similar to the Source Monitor and the Program Monitor within Premiere Pro, we have play buttons just underneath. Here with Prelude there aren't as many transport buttons. Incidentally, we can also adjust playback quality here, and by clicking on the flyout panel we can either undock or close this panel, or notice we have a playback resolution and a paused resolution. Moving to the right we'll see this marker inspector panel. One of the operations that we can conduct is to add markers. Let's think about adding some sort of marker. I'm going to add a comment. Now, if I move my playhead to around about here, by coming over to the marker type panel at the bottom left, I can choose from any of these marker types. I'm going to choose comment, and once I do click on there, then in my timeline a comment area has now appeared. Just above we get a description field. However, you don't have to add it there, you could use the marker inspector. Now by clicking in this field, I'll just type in the word narration. Now down on the timeline here, my comment indicator takes on the word narration. And also we see this comment marker. Consequently, this can be moved around, left click on it and drag it about where you would prefer to position it. What I can now do is reduce the length of this comment by grabbing at the right hand side there, click and drag in, meaning I can reposition this comment area. The purpose of doing this would be that either I or a co-worker within Premiere Pro doing a final edit will be able to see these comment markers and follow what necessary instructions that we provide. That's the timeline area, and as you can see we've got video and its embedded audio. At any one time you can only have one file open, and as we've seen, here is our marker list. We've only got the one marker, but this would populate with the markers that we include. If too many for you to be working on comfortably, or you only want to see a certain type of marker, by clicking here where it says show, click on that drop reveal arrow there At the moment it's showing all markers, but you can see that we could prefer to choose to see simply a subclip or a comment or a flash cue point, etc, etc. For example, with this comment marker, selecting comment clearly will show us this comment marker. You don't have to restrict yourself to just showing one type of marker here, as we have with comment. If we want to choose to add subclip markers to the available comment markers, then of course we would select that as well. If you can't see any markers, but you know you have some, it's possibly because you've selected a marker type that you haven't included within your Prelude project at the moment. For example, if I choose web link, we haven't got any web link marker here, therefore we don't see any markers in our marker list. Let me hit the timeline tab once more. At the bottom left here, these are the different types of markers that we could use. One final thing I want to look at in this user interface overview. Here, across the top, you can see I've got 4 buttons. At the moment it's set to logging, and what we see essentially is a workspace for when we are logging clips. If I move along to the list button, then we see this new type of workspace to reflect the way that we would work in this list view. Pretty much we see the same panels, but they're positioned in other areas on your screen. If I hit rough cut, then this workspace looks like this. The only button we haven't used yet is the first one, this ingest button. By clicking here, you can see this ingest panel, and the ingest panel opens as a floating panel. We don't see it in any of the other workspaces. This ingest panel really is our first port of call when we are bringing in our assets that we want to ingest for a new project. We could navigate to the relevant folder containing the files that I want to use in a new project. Right, that is a user interface overview for Prelude.